Blessed and happy Easter, everyone. This is Father Chuck recording an introduction to this episode of our homily podcast here at my house in North Portland. Yesterday at our Easter Sunday Mass, I got a humbling surprise. While I was giving my homily, looked down and saw that I had forgotten to push the record button on my voice memo app of the phone I use. So I want to give you a recap of what I was saying up until that moment when I noticed there was no recording happening. I was introducing my paraphrase and summary of Pope Francis' message from Easter Sunday called the Pope's Urbi et Orbi message, which in Latin means to the city and to the world. The city is Rome, and this message Pope Francis delivered after the Easter Sunday morning Mass there at the Vatican. Please note that in my presentation, most of what I say is verbatim from the Pope's message, but here and there I do a bit of paraphrasing. We will have a link to the full text in the description of this episode. So please listen now as I pick up where I realized I needed to push the record button, as I had just started to read from the Pope's 2024 Easter Urbi et Orbi message. God bless you. Have a happy and holy Easter season. The church relives the amazement of the women who went to the tomb at dawn on the first day of the week. The tomb of Jesus had been sealed with a great stone. Today, two great stones, heavy stones, block the hopes of humanity. The stone of war, the stone of humanitarian crises, the stone of human rights violations, the stone of human trafficking, and other stones as well. Like the women disciples of Jesus, we ask one another, who will roll away the stone for us from the entrance to the tomb? This is the amazing discovery of that Easter morning. The stone, the immense stone, was rolled away. The astonishment of the women is our astonishment as well. The tomb of Jesus is open and it is empty. From this, everything begins anew. A new path leads through that empty tomb, the path that none of us, but God alone, could open. The path of life in the midst of death. The path of peace in the midst of war. The path of reconciliation in the midst of hatred and hostility. Brothers and sisters, Jesus Christ is risen. He alone has the power to roll away the stones that block the path of life. He, the living one, is himself that path. He is the way that leads to life, the way of peace, reconciliation, and fraternity. He opens up that path, humanly impossible, because he alone takes away the sin of the world and forgives us our sins. For without God's forgiveness, that stone cannot be removed. Without the forgiveness of sins, there is no overcoming the barriers of prejudice, mutual recrimination, the presumption that we are always right and others wrong. Only Jesus alone opens up before us the doors of life. The risen Christ, by granting us the forgiveness of sins, opens the way for a renewed world. So that's just a segment of Pope Francis's message today. You can easily find it yourself searching online. I invite you to do so and to read the rest of his message where he addresses particular situations throughout the world. But let us embrace the amazement of the women at the tomb. Let us embrace the initial confusion of Peter and John. And yet they're coming to know and understand the glory of Jesus' resurrection and the consequences for their lives. And here, 2,000 some years later, the consequences for all of us. As the famous 20th century British writer, Graham Greene, as I understand it, came to conversion by seeing this little ordinary everyday detail in this gospel of John running faster than Peter. I invite us each to ask God to reveal himself to us in the ordinary, everyday events and circumstances and situations of our lives, the good and the bad, the triumphant and the tragic, the sorrowful and the successful, all these ways that we might open our lives to the resurrection light of Christ as this Easter candle, the Paschal candle, lit yesterday evening at the Easter Vigil, now with the date for this year, 2024, on it. May that light of this candle symbolize the blazing light of Christ bursting from the tomb and the steady light of Christ in our lives. Alleluia, alleluia. Christ is risen from the dead.